You're welcome.
So good morning. So my name is Shazia Khan, and today's unit that we'll be doing is research in health and social care. And the learning outcome we'll be doing today is learning outcome 3, which is to be able to complete a research project in health and social care. Now, the learning outcome we did, the last learning outcomes, we did learning outcome 1 and learning outcome 2 last weekend. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the last learning outcome, which was learning outcome 2. In learning outcome 2, we looked at how to identify and justify a topic for research within services for health and social care. We looked at in learning outcome 2 in the importance of research in health and social care. So things like, diagnosing earlier diseases, earlier changing, lifelong changing treatments, preventing any sort of people from developing any conditions, trying to improve the quality of life. We also looked at elements of agreeing a topic for research, and we looked at your research proposal, how that looks and how that needs to be done for your assessment, which we'll look at more tomorrow, which is the last session, which is the assignment discussion session. We also looked at in learning outcome 2 at evidence-based learning, EPB, what that is, what the point of evidence-based learning in health and social care and why it's so important. We then went on to look at ethical considerations and within health and social care, why these principles are so important in regarding research as well, and why they're so important in regarding taking into account people's ethics. We looked at developing a timeline for research. We also looked at the importance of aims and objectives, and that was learning outcome 2. What is research aim? And what is a research objective? So what is the aim of these and why we need research aims and objectives as well? We also looked at the difference between objectives and aims and ethical considerations applied to area of research, why they're so important in regards to elements of research. We then went on to look at ethical considerations in health and care in research. And also we looked at the analysing our own critical skills and knowledge in being able to conduct a literature review in health and social care towards evidence-based learning. And we looked at the SWOT analysis in the area of research and why it was so important. So we give you an example on this diagram, on this sheet, the PowerPoint slides of what a SWOT analysis looks like. So things like, your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities and threats, and why these are important within research. We then went on to look at elements of, guidelines for policies and that are proposed for ethics and why they're so important. And we looked at the 4 main fundamental principles of ethics, which is autonomy, non-maleficence, beneficence, and justice, and why these are so important when it comes to any sort of research. Now we're looking at learning outcome 3, which is the final learning outcome, and then the assignment discussion. And learning outcome 3 is looking at being able to complete a research project in health and social care. And this would be part of your assignment discussion as well for tomorrow's session. The indicative content for the today's session, which is learning outcome 3, is to look at data collecting methods, which we looked a little bit at before as well, types of data, analysis approaches, problem statements, literature review, why they're so important when it comes to doing a literature review, methodology, data, types of data, the best research evidence as well, quality improvements and currency validity, and making sure that the evidence is authentic. Why is it so important when we look at any sort of research to make sure that the evidence we produce is authentic? Why do you think that's so important? Faustina, why do you think it's so important to research, get evidence together that is authentic and valid. Doopy?
Yeah.
Why do you think it's so important to have evidence that is authentic and valid?
So that we can have an accurate research.
Faustina, we are on the research unit, research in health and social care. Let me just put social care. Yes, unit 5. Sorry, Doopy, what was that?
I said so that we can have an
Yes.
accurate results in our research project.
So that the results we produce are accurate. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And they're authentic as well.
Yes, yes.
Um, we also look at key terminology. So what is literature review? And we look at what is sample data as well. So when we look at literature review, we identify what it is. So when we literature review is literally um a comprehensive survey and synthesis of any sort of scholarly resources that you're using and any sort of any sort of sources that you're using, and it looks at a discussion of the published material. Then you've got a sample data, and that is in regards to sample data is a set of randomly collected data, and it is data that can be from maybe one book or 2 books or 3 books. So it's an analysis of data that's been collected. And we look at these more in detail when we go on. So there's something you can have a look at there in your own time. Performing what 3.1, perform a literature review. So you need to, when you look at literature review, you need to firstly develop your search terms, what you intend to do. Ensure your question is clear and specific. Number 2, search using terms. So any sort of terms in regards to your literature review, put that in and search any sort of literature that is available for that. Number 3, identify initial primary sources on the topic. So if there's any sources that you could use, any sort of elements of books, any sort of sources that would help you for your literature review. Then number 4, read abstracts, possibly section, and also narrow down your search. Summarize in a paragraph. Number 6, create a thematical focus table, which summarizes everything. Number 7, prepare for the first draft by identifying organization. Number 8, write the first draft and then proofread and polish the first draft. So it's really important that you have a good literature review in place. So you've got an introduction, a main body, your resources are available. Where there's any sort of gaps that you struggle to find, these kind of things are really important when it comes to doing a literature review. So literature review again is a comprehensive survey synthesis of scholarly sources on a specific topic. When someone asks you, for example, Doopy, what is a literature review? What would you say? What do you think it is? What does literature mean to you? Is it books and resources?
I think it's a carefully selected books, or it can be a book, article, novel,
Works.
anything
It's for your area,
on
isn't
a
it?
topic, on a
Yeah.
topic.
So it could be for your subject area, couldn't it?
Yeah,
Any
yeah.
sort of sources, any sort of resources you get in, And it has a literature review, has four main objectives. It surveys your literature, the study that you choose. So, for example, if you lot choose something on health and social care, you need to make sure you got resources around that. Um, and also it synthesizes the information into that literature, and you critically analyze and you present that literature. And it shows the reader, a literature review shows the reader that you have an in-depth grasp of your subject. So if you talk about dementia or COVID or anything in regards to your health and social care, it identifies to the reader, for example, me or anyone else, that you have an up-to-date knowledge of your subject area and you understand where your research fits in. There's no point doing a literature review if you're not able to understand what the area is. You must do a literature review around an area you find interesting as well. And so the literature review process, it has a different process that you do. So the literature review involves things like, if there's any sort of gaps in it, or defining first of all, you need to know what to do, and know about the topic you want to look at. Clearly articulate a question or a topic you aim to explore. And then what do you have to say critically about what is already known? So determine the boundaries of your review. Make sure you search for relevant literature, evaluating what literature, whether it's valid, whether it's relevant. So evaluating and then synthesizing, analyzing your findings, and then writing the literature review. So it's really important, you think about areas that you want to do for your literature review and for your research project, which we'll look at tomorrow in more detail. When we look at a literature review, it has different characteristics, and typically it is you need to make sure what you are reviewing is rigorous, and you need to make sure that you're able to get sources on that area, because what would happen if you can't get any sort of sources on that area? So when we look at research, why do you think research is so important when it comes to literature review? What if you can't get any sort of resources on your area?
If you are not getting any resources for your area,
Yeah.
I think you can have a group discussion, or maybe
So
look for.
do you think that's really important, that when you do a literature review, you need to make sure you're able to find out different
Maybe
resources that are available?
if you are not getting anything available, maybe you can change your topic. You are not restricted, so you can
Yeah.
change your topic, or maybe seek advice.
Yeah, it's really important. There's different characteristics. Firstly, is the need for the reviewer to give rigorous yet pragmatic account of what is being reviewed. Secondly, literature review ought to supersede a descriptive rerun. And thirdly, one that attracts little attention. So you need to make sure that the review remains ongoing and there's, resources out there available for that. 3.2.
I'm thinking if there are no resources, you can be the what word do I use? The
Sorry?
the if there are
I
no
mean, if you look
resources,
at the things that I gave you last week, some of the examples,
I wasn't around last week.
or have a look at the element of listen to the recording, and in there there's
Okay.
some steps where you can get the research from, your research. So it could be things like, the impact of COVID on health and social care. It could
All
be the
right.
impact of COVID on elderly people, or it could be looking at whether resources are available for elderly people. So there's lots of areas you can look at, and there will be lots of findings and a lot of information available. It's just, we're looking at the element of if there isn't, available any
Okay.
data. So create a sample of data of findings. So data sampling is about selecting data from a larger data set to analyze rather than examine. So, it's a statistical analysis techniques used to select a process and analyze a representative of subset of populations. And it's also there to use to identify patterns of trends in an overall population. So, for example, an example I could give you of data sampling is suppose you have to do a phone survey. Your phone book contains 20,000 residents listings. You must choose 400 names for the sample. So you number the population 1 to 20,000 and then use a simple random sample to pick a number that represents the first name in the sample. So it's about sampling data, which is not too large for you to analyze and, look at, which is efficient and cost efficient as well. So the element of looking at types of data. So you've got different types of data. The next slide. Many different types of data that you could look at in regards to it. And we have things like further variations would look at things like simple random sampling. So this includes every member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. So it's just selecting someone out there. Stratified sampling, and this is divided into subgroups, which are referred to as strata. And samples are drawn from each stratum, ensuring representation from all groups. Then you have cluster sampling, and that's divided, the population is divided into different clusters and they are randomly selected. Then you have multi-stage sampling, which combines a different probability of sampling methods. And then the final one is systematic sampling, are selected from a population that is at regular intervals. So these are different types of sampling methods. So why do you think sampling is so important when we look at sampling? Why do you think it's important to sampling is so important? Why do you think? Why do you think sampling is so important? Do you think some of the methods used are good and some are not in sampling?
I think sampling is good
Yeah,
because you have a smaller group representing a larger group, and it sometimes gives you accurate results of what you are looking for.
yeah,
Though there may be some lapses, but it still gives the accurate results you're looking for.
yeah,
And it reduces cost. Unlike and time, it saves time too, because unlike going to the whole country to
yeah,
sample everybody to take part, that
yeah,
few can still represent the larger whole. So I think it's
yeah,
very
yeah.
important.
It samples of an amount of people that randomly are selected, so it doesn't necessarily mean it samples everyone. Sampling can be based on non-probability, and non-probability sampling is where the sample is selected based on a non-random criteria, and not every member of the population has a chance of being included. So common non-probability sampling methods include things like, conveyancing, convenient sampling, voluntary response sampling, purposive sampling, snowball sampling, and quarter sampling. So these are examples of that. And this diagram on here shows you the data sampling methods and the probability and non-probability on that as well. Non-probability data, as we mentioned, it's elements of convenience sampling, which is where participants are chosen based on their availability and accessibility to the research. You have consecutive sampling, which is data collected from every subject and that it meets the criteria. Purposive sampling, which is that the researcher uses their judgment to select participants who are believed to be representative or have specific knowledge relevant to that research. Quota sampling is the population is divided into subgroups and a predetermined number of participants are selected from each group. So the different ways of sampling, and the reason is that there's techniques for using different elements of sampling. They are most common ones, but they are used because it may fit that kind of area or the work that they're doing that this form of sampling would fit. So 3.3, apply suitable data analysis methods for data collectors. So data analysis, when we look at what data analysis is, it's a process of inspecting, cleansing, transforming, and modeling data with the goal of discovering useful information, informing conclusions, and supporting decisions. And it involves things like statistical or logical techniques to describe, illustrate, recap, and evaluate any sort of data. And there are several methods that they use, and the two core areas that they use is quantitative and qualitative data, which we looked at in elements of learning outcome 1 and 2. Looking at why is the data analysis so important, we look at elements of that, and we look at things like it's really crucial to have data analysis from a management perspective because it transforms any sort of raw data into actionable insights that drive better decision making, improving efficiency and enhancing any sort of customer service. So it's there to try to help any sort of decision making. It's there to help your capital, and it reduces costs and things like that as well. So it improves operational efficiency, decision making, customer expectation. It helps businesses understand their customers' behaviors, risk management, things like innovation as well is a big part of it, and trends and patterns. Data analysis is a necessity for businesses and organizations because every business thrives to become better. And if they're using this data analysis, it makes sure that there's they can identify any sort of potential risks. They can analyze any sort of historical data, and the main thing is to make sure that they it helps businesses understand their customer behavior, and helps them progress as well. Is everyone okay? Anyone got any questions? Okay. Target customers better. So target customers better. Customers are arguably the most crucial element in any business, isn't it? If you go into a shop, you want to purchase something, you are the most important person there. Why are you the most important person for a business? The customer. Why do you think you're the most important person in a business? Doopy? Jacinda, Matthew, anyone? Why do you think you're the most important person in a business? So we've got Millie's on, Miracle, and Nawad. Okay.
I'm thinking because your expertise will be considered, your skills,
Okay. So if you're a
everything,
customer,
depending on everything.
would a business, if I open an ice cream shop and I don't have
Mhm.
any customers, will my business run?
No, it can't.
No.
No. So the best the people that are the most crucial part of any business is a customer, because you know
Okay.
you are tailoring your business around your customer, aren't you? You know, your customers will give you feedback. Your customers will give you their preferences. You will, you know, have to create things for the customer. So, you know, you have to target that customer 360 degrees. You know, you have to understand the channels of communications, you know, things like that, marketing, understanding their needs. Because your customer, your business won't run if you do that, if you don't do elements of targeting customers better. What is the data analysis process? So the process has 5 key stages that it goes by. Firstly, identifying. So identifying elements of what you want to do. Before you get, you know, you need to identify what you want to put in place. So you need to define. You need to define the problem or the research question. You need to make sure you are, you know, you have ways of conducting that. Then you will collect data. Once you understand the question, you need to, it's time to you know, get all the data together, collecting the data, which sources you're going to use. And your data can come from internal or external sources. So you could have first party data is from customers or audiences, second party data is by organizations, and then maybe by numerous sources that you use. So, you know, make sure you're doing that. Then the third part of it is to clean. Once you have the necessary data, it's time to clean it and leave it for analyzing. Make sure you analyze the data, and make sure this is the time where, you know, you need to identify whether the data is going to be needed or not. Then you've got fourthly, analyze. So with the help, now that you've got the data, you need to make sure that you are going to analyze that data. So you could have descriptive analysis, you could have elements of diagnostic analysis. Make sure you are analyzing that data, and then interpret. Lastly, is the most important step is you interpret the results. So what the results are, what you've collected, you've cleansed and modeled the data. So now you have accurate and useful data, and it's time to interpret. And this involves presenting the data. Typically, this will be presenting data in a form of maybe a breakdown of some of the outcomes. And it's also important to share any gaps with the data at this time as well. Or you had, you know, in poor quality data. And this is where businesses will look at taking any sort of actions or putting any sort of decisions in place. So this is a process that needs to be followed by every business to make sure that data is scrutinized all the way through the process. 3.4, present data information from findings to produce results. So presenting this data is really important, and there are different ways of presenting and communicating this data. And they could be in the form of, you know, tables, it could be in the form of bar charts, it could be in the form of pie charts. You know, some people understand things differently. So for organizations, you know, you need to present data. It may be visually so that it's able to understand. It may be data in the form of pie charts. It may be data in the form of bar charts. So it's about that person understanding them and you presenting the data to them so that they're able to understand it and maybe, you know, come out with the best results. Qualitative data is more likely to be done in text form, for example, quotations from interviews or field diaries. So 3.5, draw conclusions and recommendations from your research finding. Why is it important to draw conclusions and recommendations from your findings? Millie, why do you think it's so important? We've got Millie on, we've got Nwadi, Ibhadi, anyone? Deborah, Boma, why do you think it's so important to come up after doing your research findings with conclusions and recommendations?
So that you need to know whether the data collected can be used or not.
Yes. And also, do you think would it give you a comparison of things as well?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
it will.
Yeah. So
And it also
conclusion.
depends on the research on what has been
Yes.
done. Like
Yes.
after selecting, let's say out of a group, maybe you selected 8 people. It could be
Yeah.
maybe you just selected them because they were available.
Yeah.
So you need to conclude
Yeah.
based on
And
that.
you need to make sure.
I think it also gives room for it, whether it is useful or not.
Yeah.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
consider the
So,
usefulness of it.
you're almost looking at the conclusions, giving you a comparison of the results, whether the results are useful or not for that research.
Mm-hmm.
And making sure that, you are summarizing any sort of key findings, what answers you've got to the research, any sort of recommendations, and you need to be always referring back to the research initial aims as well. So,
And at the end of it, well, it should be considered if it can be accepted
yeah.
by
And if it could be used,
and to be used.
yeah. It's there to summarize everything, all the work you've done, and draw to a conclusion. The conclusion might be something, Faustina, Millie, Ibad, anyone that you don't expect.
Mm.
It's learning from the process as well. So it's really important that you come up with a conclusion recommendations. Looking at 3M1, which is a merit work, so analyze the importance of validity and reliability of data used within any sort of research. So validity and reliability are so crucial in any sort of research because it ensures that the quality of trustworthiness of research data makes sure that your data is reliable and valid, and it's consistent and accurate as well. It's important that reliability and validity. Sorry, what's that? Paddy, did you have something to say? Oh,
No,
I
sorry.
guess no, it's okay. So it's really important to consider reliability and validity when creating your research design, planning your methods, and writing up your results, because you need to make sure that your data is trustworthiness, and it's so important that your data is reliable and valid. So what is validity? So we look at the element of what validity is when it comes to research. What do you think when we talk about validity? What do you think it is?
I think it's about accuracy.
Accurate. Yeah. It's all about the extent of which your tool is accurately measured to the concept. So does the test measure what it's supposed to measure? So validity is really important when it comes to that. Things like high validity is essential for ensuring that the research findings are meaningful and can be generalized to the intended population. So, examples here they've given, if a thermometer shows different temperatures each time, even though you have carefully controlled conditions to ensure the sample's temperature stays the same, the thermometer is probably malfunctioning and therefore the measurements are not valid. And then if a symptom questionnaire results in a reliable diagnosis when answered at different times with different doctors, this indicates high validity as a measurement of medical conditions. So we've got types of validity. We've got construct validity, which ensures the measure aligns with the underlying theoretical concept it aims to capture. You've got content validity, which ensures that the measures covers the full range of concept being measured. And then you've got criterion validity, which determines how well the measure correlates with other measures of the same construct. So have a look at that in your own time as well. There's a diagram there, which is quite a table with all the details of the different types of validity. Now we look at reliability. Okay, why is reliability so important? What is reliability?
In terms of probability, we are saying, is it valid or is it reliable?
Okay.
If it is valid, then there's high probability of or high chances of yielding a good result. But if
Yeah.
not, then you can
It's
resort
all
to
to do. It's all to do with is the reliability. Is it consistent? You know, it looks at consistent measurements, it answers the question. Reliability is crucial for ensuring that the findings of a study are not due to the random error and can be replicated. So reliability is really important, whether the information is consistent. There's different types of reliability. You've got the first one, test, retest reliability, which looks at consistency of results across multiple administrations of same test. So the same tests have been done. Then you've got internal inter-rater reliability, which consistency of results when different researchers or raters use the same measurement tool, like we said, the two doctors. And then internal consistency between different items within a test designed to measure the same construct. So it looks at elements of that in regards to that. And you know, it's really important when we look at reliability and validity in why they are so crucial in elements of a thesis. So, you know, when you're doing a thesis, you have a literature review, a methodology, results, discussion, and a conclusion. And, you know, when we do reliability within a thesis, it refers to the consistency and repeatability of that research findings, while validity refers to the accuracy of your research in measuring what it's intended to measure. So do you think both reliability and validity is really crucial within writing a thesis?
yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Faustina said yes. Well, anyone else think reliability and validity is really important when writing a thesis?
Because if it's not valid and it's not reliable, it should be aborted.
What's that? Sorry.
Whatever you are doing is not reliable and it's not
Yeah.
valid, you can't use it. You can't continue with it.
So
You
when it
can't
looks
use
at
it.
reliability, your research needs to be consistent.
It should be.
Yeah, and when you look at validity, your research needs to be accurate.
Yeah, it should be.
So, Billy, if you write a research project, do you need to make sure that your research is reliable and valid?
Yeah, it has to be.
Why?
Because I think, like, let's say if the same if you're going to do the same research again,
Yeah,
is it going to give the same results?
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Other
you
than
know,
that, you cannot draw conclusions.
yeah, yeah. From
Yeah.
if your research is not, like Faustina said, reliable or valid, it's very difficult to come up with a conclusion. Reliability focuses on whether your methods and results can be replicated. So, using standard procedures, design your study. Validity examines whether your research accurately measures what it intends to. So, a valid study ensures that findings genuinely reflect the concept of phenomena you are investigating. So, you need to make sure that the reliability in your thesis is consistency, and validity is all about accuracy. Um, a reliable study um, is not necessarily valid, but a valid study is usually reliable. So both, when we look at both reliability and validity, they're both essential to produce a strong, trustworthy research paper. And when you produce that kind of paper and you use reliable and valid research, you can demonstrate that the rigor of your trustworthiness and your research there's meaningful around your research that you've done. So it's really, really important. Both are used when preparing, doing a thesis. So the next one is to look at 1D1, which looks, sorry, 3D1, which looks at examine the value of literature review process in influencing positive change in social care. And there's an article on Moodle which looks at why do literature review in health and social care, 3D1. And when you look at literature review, it's so crucial for driving positive change in health and social care, and it provides a comprehensive understanding of any sort of existing evidence, identifying knowledge gaps and informing best practices. So it helps practitioners stay updated, it helps them develop evidence-based strategies and evaluates the effectiveness of any sort of interventions as well. So it's really important, a literature review, to build a solid foundation for any sort of practice. So, identifying any sort of knowledge gaps, informing any sort of policy and guidelines, promoting continuous improvement, enhancing professional development, making sure that you are promoting any sort of reflection and supporting professional growth. It also looks at elements of sharing knowledge. So literature review can be disseminated to a wider audience, sharing valuable knowledge and promoting collaboration. Also, by providing a transparent and systematic review of any sort of evidence, literature reviews can contribute to greater accountability in health and social care, ensuring that services are delivered effectively. So when we look at literature review, it's a process that is really important tool for driving positive change in any sort of organization, but especially in health and social care. And it informs people of any sort of practices, promoting any sort of continuous improvement and fostering this culture of evidence-based decision making. So, when we look at the element of literature review and the positive impact on health and social care practice, it plays a pivotal role in positive change in health and social care practice, because it looks at elements of changes, it influences elements of accountability, making sure you are providing any sort of training, and it helps researchers design a strong study and effectively communicate study and its results. So it's really important within the medical field. Have you got any questions?
Something is bothering my mind.
Yeah.
Can there ever be a situation when a research is not valid, it's not
There will be.
reliable,
I mean, when you do a
anything?
thesis, you don't always get the result you want, Faustina.
Okay,
You don't
okay.
always come up to the end result that you want. I mean, when I've been supervising dissertations for my students, and they say, if they give you an example, they look at the criminal justice system is fair in the UK. They might come up with things to say that it's unfair at the end of it.
Okay, so when
They
it
may
does
have got,
happen, what do you do?
yeah, they may have got research that identifies that it's unfair rather than fair. So, it depends on what you look at in your practice. So we finished learning outcome 3, and I'll just give you a summary of what we did today. So we looked at being able to complete a research project in health and social care. We looked at data collecting methods. We looked at literature review, what literature review is, sampling data. We also looked at the element of the process of literature review, what you need to know, how you need to go about it. We looked at creating a sample of data from our findings. We also looked at the different types of data sampling, such as simple random sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, multi-stage sampling, and systematic sampling. We also looked at elements of non-probability data sampling, and we looked at what data analysis is, why it's so important within health and social care, and we looked at the data analysis process, so identifying, collecting, cleaning, analyzing, and interpreting. We looked at presenting data and information from findings to produce results, and we looked at drawing conclusions and recommendations from research findings. We looked at the importance of validity and reliability of data used within a research and also in a thesis as well. We looked at examining the value of literature review process in influence positive change in the health and social care and why that's so important. There's also, I've referred you to an article that you could look at on Moodle for 3D1, which is the distinction element is why do a literature review in health and social care. So these are the resources used for today's session. You can right click on these to go onto the actual links if you want to read them in more detail. Furtherly reading is literature review of best health and social care practices for individuals with intellectual disabilities encountering end of life. Plenary, again, refer to ebooks and any sort of journals on Moodle, any sort of additional reading. There's some further reading there. You can open up that, which is the value, importance, and oversight of health research and the evidence-based practice implementation. So the links are there for you to have a look at in your own time so you could read around the area. Any queries or questions, you've got to email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. You can also ask me questions as well. Tomorrow is the final session for this Unit 5, which is the assignment discussion session, which will look at the assignment. We'll also look at research proposal template, so you're able to understand what you need to do for each assignment, whether you want to do, also when you're doing the assignment, when you've done the assignment, please identify whether you want a pass, merit, or distinction. But that will go through tomorrow, okay? So you're able to understand what you need to do for each area, okay? Any questions before we finish the session off today? No?
Question. No
Okay.
question.
Thank you, Faustina. Thank you everyone for attending today's session. Tomorrow's session I will see you at 11 o'clock
Thank
for the
you.
assignment discussion session.
Bye.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Thank
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.